Types of tenancy agreements. Tatiana Fonseca, Alejandra Cortés, and Michael Arango. Introduction. What is the contract lease? An agreement between the owner of a movable or immovable property and a person called the lessee who needs to use that property for any licit benefit. That agreement essentially provides for the specific identification of the movable or immovable property being licit.
Periodic or fixed-term tenancy. Periodic tenancy. A periodic tenancy agreement has no end date. It continues until either the tenant or the landlord gives written notice to end it. Fixed-term tenancy. A fixed-term tenancy agreement lasts for a set amount of time, 1 year. There is no maximum length for a fixed-term tenancy. You must include the length on the tenancy agreement. You cannot give notice to end a fixed-term tenancy early. You should make sure a fixed term is right for you before you sign the agreement. Once the terms end, the tenancy will become periodic. If you don't want this to happen, you need to give notice in writing at least 21 days before the terms ends. Short fixed-term tenancy. If the fixed term is 19 days or less, it is a short fixed-term tenancy. It does not become periodic when the terms end. A short fixed-term tenancy cannot be used as a trial period. If the landlord and tenant agree in writing that the tenancy won't extend beyond 19 days, the following won't apply: rules about market rent and rules about increasing the rent after making improvements to the property, and finally rules on giving notice, then the tenancy. If the tenancy does extend beyond 19 days, all rules will apply as usual. And as a conclusion, in Colombia we do not find types of leases such as the ones I have just named, but on the contrary, the term of the leasing contract may be whatever the parties agree to, but in the event that there is no express statement of the same, it is understood that it is for a term of 1 year.
Boarding house. Boarding house tenancy and standard tenancies share many of the same requirements. In a boarding house, tenants have their own boarding house tenancy agreement with their landlord to rent a single room or a sleeping area within a room they share with other tenants. They also share facilities, for example, the kitchen and bathroom. This is different to a standard tenancy where on more tenants sign the tenancy agreement to rent the whole property. A boarding house is occupied or intended to be occupied by at least 6 tenants. How boarding house tenancies are different. There are no fixed terms. Tenancies in a boarding house agreement are intended to last 28 days or more. If the bond is equal to 1 week's rent or less, it does have to be lodged with tenancy service. The landlord must have 28 days writing notice before increasing the rent. Tenants must have access to their room and toilet and bathroom facilities at all times. Landlords must keep the shared facilities in a reasonable state of cleanliness. The next room must be reasonably clean and tidy and must not create a health or safety hazard. The landlord can enter the boarding house at any time, but they must give 24 hours notice to enter a tenant's room, except in specific circumstances. See entering a tenant's room. Boarding house landlords also need to stay up to date with changes to tenancy law. Recent changes include the Healthy Homes Standards and Resident Tenancies Amendment Act 2020. Boarding house tenancy agreement. Tenancy agreements are contracts between a landlord and tenants. All tenancy agreements must be in writing and include some essential information. Also, there are additional statements that landlords must sign and attach to all new tenancy agreements. In Colombia, it is similar to the United States. The difference is that it has different names, but is the same concept. My conclusion is that the lease is very important because thanks to this, people who do not have property can pay to live in a house.
Service tenancy USA. In a service tenancy, an employer provides accommodation for the worker to live in during their employment. All service tenancy need a written tenancy agreement, even if the tenancy doesn't pay rent. It's style a service tenancy. The tenancy agreement can sometimes be part of the employment contract, but it's better if they're separate. In Colombia, never mix the lease with the employment contract. The Residential Tenancy Act covers service tenancy. All the standard rules apply except for in Colombia, leasing agreements are enshrined in the Civil Code and in Law 820 of 2003. Okay. Rent can be deducted from the tenant wage. In Colombia, the rent cannot be deducted from the tenancy salary. The landlord might deduct to the rent directly from the tenant by each week or fortnight. they can only do tenant agrees it is in the employment contract or it complies with employment law. If there is a longer pay period, the landlord can deduct the rent for that same longer period. In Colombia, rent is usually paid every month, but everything depends on what is agreed between the landlord and the tenant. A landlord can't only give notice to end a service tenancy if the tenant's employment or engagement has ended or is due to end. A notice to end the service tenants cannot generally take effect before the employment or engagement ends or before the transfers occurs. As I mentioned above, in Colombia, the lease contract does not have to do with the tenant work, and the landlord will not be able to evict him. If he is left without work, eviction notice must be given a few months in advance. My conclusion is the leases in the USA and Colombia are very different. In Colombia, they are not subject to an employment contract. They are totally autonomous and detached.